Hello.
Hi, Hayden. I just wanted to make it clear I'm calling you for the podcast and not for our friendship.
Yeah, no, that's what I assumed. I've given up on our friendship.
We're doing a podcast today. It's election day, November 5th here in America, which will be November 6th in New Zealand. And it's going to look at some of the big conspiracy theories from this election cycle. I'm just wondering if any of those have made it over to New Zealand.
Oh, heaps. Everything that you say, if an American moves their little finger and makes it over to New Zealand, don't you worry. We are very much abreast of the news from where you are. You don't know even where we are on a map. Most of your maps don't even have us.
Yeah, and New Zealand does love America. New Zealand does.
We do not love America. America is just, it's fine. There's good things that come from America. But it's just that whatever it does is of such global significance that we just have to constantly be cowering in fear at the thought of the next horrible move you guys are going to make.
Are people in New Zealand talking about this election, or is it not really featured?
I think so. When I was reflecting on it myself, I reckon it's just this background, just sick-making anxiety in my stomach. But I just realized that it was this background anxiety that is always there.
Who are you putting, I know you're not a betting man necessarily, but who are you putting your money on?
I'm like 51% Kamala.
Okay, close.
Yeah, I'm leaning Kamala because I trust in the American people. I believe in the American people, and I've always said positive things about them.
What is the main conspiracy theory that's jumped out to you from this American election cycle, would you say?
The one that springs to mind is the Trump assassination attempt was a coordinated thing. Just because of the number of moving parts that would have to fall into place for that to be true. It's just amazing how much competence Democratic supporters ascribe to the Trump organization, even after seeing them govern for 4 years in the most haphazard, incompetent, disorganized way, perhaps in human history. Like maybe there's like a medieval lord or something in the 1300s that did worse, but like we don't know about it. And just thinking that they had the competence to get all that together, all that shit together. And then there was that funny stuff about I guess, like Haitian migrants in Springfield. And there was like all these songs like, they're eating the dogs. And you're like, ha, ha, ha. But meanwhile, like some Haitian migrant is like in Springfield, Ohio. Their house has just been firebombed by a bandana-wearing boomer who's been brainwormed from Fox News and OAN or whatever. And they're thinking, oh, yeah, real funny guys.
Just finally, I just wanted to check on how you're doing and how life's going.
You don't have to go through this little dance, David.
I care about you and I care about our friendship.
Well, it was so nice being able to talk about conspiracy theories. And I thought, that's what I want out of a friendship. So today's been a good day.
I'm David Farrier, a New Zealander accidentally marooned in America, and I want to figure out what makes this country tick. If you're listening to this on the day it comes out and you're in America, today is the 5th of November, a day that seems to have taken forever to arrive, but has also somehow arrived very, very quickly. Being in America for an election is weird for me, just because everything is so heightened here compared with an election back in New Zealand. In New Zealand, the whole election cycle can be kind of boring. In America, it feels like a weird circus act or freak show. It's like watching a political thriller on Netflix that's too zany to be real, or like you've dozed off and had the strangest, sweatiest dream. Also, I can't vote, so I have no skin in the game despite the game being where I currently live and make this podcast. So today, as I have absolutely no say in what happens tonight, I thought we could look back, together, at something that fascinates me, at the conspiracy theories that have come from both the left and the right, QAnon and BlueAnon, the theories that have defined the last few months. So, get off to that polling station and make a decision based on the facts and policy, not wild conspiracy theories, because this is the Election Conspiracies episode.
Flightless, flightless bird touchdown in America. flightless bird touched down in America.
Now, we are recording this on Halloween, October 31st, so it's already quite a weird day. But this is coming out, you were listening to this on Election Day.
What's your stress and anxiety level going into Election Day?
I feel so similar. I mean, I've known Hayden for about 20 years. I feel like we're kind of like cosmically linked, but I feel similar to him. I feel anxious about it. I feel I'm excited for the noise to stop. It's just been so much and all consuming. And I find that really hard to describe to friends back home, just how noisy it's been. Is that your feeling?
Yeah, I think everyone's feeling that. I think you're potentially being a little naive that it's all going to stop today. I feel like this is going to be the feeling until January.
Yeah. Because if it's close as well, it's going to drag on. And whatever happens, there's going to be so much arguing over what actually happened, right? The process.
Exactly. And if it's anything like the last one.
Yeah, so it's almost like whatever happens, it's going to be noisy as hell.
Well, I mean, as Trump's already said this out loud, that if he wins, he'll believe the results. If he doesn't win, it's rigged. So he's already telling us.
Yeah, it's this catch-22 where, it's going to be a hellish nightmare for months on end. It really is.
Were you here for the last election?
I was.
Okay.
But
you were not in the States when Trump won.
No, I was. So I was.
Here
so I was over here doing promotion for Tickles. I ended up at a dive bar somewhere in the valley with New Zealand friends who were all very liberal. The feeling was this is going to be an amazing night.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really plugged into the conversation at all. And it was just watching the results come in and watching everyone just deflate.
Yeah.
It was a weird, like, I'm glad I was here to see that, but it was not a good vibe for me.
No, it was rough. I was in New York at the time, and I was staying a mile from both of their camps.
Oh, that's wild.
And I was with a friend from high school. He is here on a work visa from Japan. I've known him since high school, though.
Yeah.
So an immigrant trying to stay in America, trying to work in America. Obviously, that night did not go the way either of us wanted to.
Yeah, awful. But you're being there with someone who potentially
the stakes are
so directly affect.
Yeah, the stakes are very high for him, and having that be a piece of it.
Were you just watching it at your place, or were you at a bar?
We were at a bar near the hotel, and then I had a client meeting the next morning, across the street from the Trump Tower.
Oh.
And it was with a bunch of like financial bros that just came in so happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a really weird.
Yeah, I just remember being at the Airbnb I was at the next day, or maybe it was that whole week, and you'd turn the TV on and it's like, oh, they're blocking the freeway now. There's protests here. This is happening. Like, it got really feral. And I can only imagine the heat has gotten much higher. And it feels like whatever's going to happen, it's going to be more.
Well, I don't remember that election. There wasn't contention on, or there. I guess there was. Hillary had won the popular vote by quite a bit, but by the end of election night, there was not this weak period of who won.
No, but there was anger.
Yeah, there was anger.
There was, but we're not. It wasn't what we're going to have this time, which is just arguing over reality for however long we argue over that for.
Which is what the last election was just that there was all this election interference.
I mean, that's what we're talking about today. As far as election conspiracies, that idea that reality is not there has crept in, and it feels every election that's just going to get worse and worse, right? Or is it going to swing back in the other direction?
I don't have the confidence to say this, but I would hope that whatever politicians come next for the Republicans, that won't be a thing anymore. Watching back the debates between Mitt Romney and Obama, was that who he was debating? And just how civil the conversation was and how respectful it was.
Civility is what's gone completely out the door. It's comical how it's like you're watching 11-year-olds fighting in the schoolyard.
Well, and they don't even seem to be hiding it anymore. Like watching the World Series this last week, there was anti-transgender commercials. Every commercial break had one.
That's right. You texted me during the game. Like, did you see that?
Where they're using footage of like Charlemagne the God complaining about the transgender surgeries in prisons. But Charlemagne the God is suing Trump. He sent to like a cease and desist, but they're just doing it anyways. They don't give a fuck. They're like, we're going to put this out without him being okay with it. And that's just kind of the general vibe of this whole election is, no, we're going to do whatever the fuck we want.
No one answers to anything.
Yeah.
It's like Musk paying out $1 million a day to people on his little list. That's an issue, but like he gets fined. Who cares?
Did you see there was that footage of his interview with Tucker Carlson?
I haven't seen it yet.
And it's basically him. I don't know if this was off air, but it leaked of him being like, if Trump doesn't win, I'm fucked. Like, I'm going to jail.
Oh my God.
And it's
that
him
clear.
just like fully like, I'm in big trouble because of.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, what was so beautiful in a way when Trump lost was that it got quiet. And he got booted off Twitter back then.
Yeah.
And that made things quiet because a lot of the Trump news cycle was just the news recycling his tweets because they're so outrageous. What we've got now is Musk owning Twitter. And so Trump isn't on Twitter, but any news about him or any of his bullshit is just amplified so much more now. So it's the opposite situation where his noise is just everywhere.
Well, and I also feel like it's this kind of trauma PTSD thing happening where he did kind of go away for a little bit after.
He did.
Unless you were like
unless you were following Truth
on his social platform.
No, he disappeared and it was nice. It was just quiet and it was more civil.
Yeah, but now because of this election, it's just got ramped up and we're back to this again. And I don't know who enjoys this.
Is anyone really? I mean, okay, this is probably a good time to remind people of the task for tonight.
Yes.
Wherever you are in the US, or we'll let Canadians in on this as well. Wherever you are.
They voting?
But they'll have opinions. They'll be watching, Get your phone early on in the night, wherever you are, just record, give us a setting, who you are, where in the States you are, who you're watching with, what the setting is. And then early on in the night, just go and talk to some people about how they're feeling about things. And then later on the night, when there's a result, or probably definitely not a result, and everyone's just tired and goes home, get a bit more audio about how people are finding things at the end of the night, and then email it to flightlessbirdchat@gmail.com. Whatever files you've got, try and give them good file names. Email them to flightlessbirdchat@gmail.com. And then next week, we'll be doing a look back at the election, and we'll include some of that stuff.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have results by the time we record that one, but I don't know that either one of us are super optimistic that there'll be a clear decision. But yeah, 3 easy steps. Where you are, how you feel before results, how you feel at the end of the night.
Yeah, that'd be great. And a final bit of housekeeping before we get into things. Spread the word about this podcast. If you like an episode, take a screen grab or get the link and tweet it or Instagram story it or whatever. You're listening, which is great, but a load of people don't know this even exists, and we would be super appreciative if you could spread the word. Email a friend. I don't know, send them a letter. Send a letter to your mum saying there's this great podcast you might like. My mum listened for the first time.
My mum listened to Catfishing.
Oh, that's really cute. That's so weird. Yeah. I wonder why that episode. Yeah, mum wrote, and she usually writes like updates from New Zealand, about some birds she's seen, or she's got a lot of animals in her life. She'll email me updates, but she was just like, I listened to your show for the first time she's listened to a podcast.
Oh.
And she liked it, which from my mum is a huge compliment because my parents are so low key. They're not like ones to like praise anything. So that was incredible.
Yeah, my mom has gotten into podcasts the last couple months.
Which is a dangerous path potentially to go down. Because I hate thinking about anyone I know and definitely family listening. How do you feel about it?
I try to not think about it. I have a pretty open and honest relationship and dialogue with my mom, though.
Yeah, they know what you're about. And you're not on here usually trumpeting filth. I mean, a little bit of filth, but you're pretty mum-friendly, I'd say, in general.
But, I mean, anything I would say in front of my mom.
It's not a different version of you that she's not horrified by the Rob that she gets on air.
No, she's just horrified in general.
Yeah, she's just, she knows what to expect.
She's getting the Rob she knows.
Look, this episode, I just thought we could run through some different conspiracy theories from this election cycle. I've spoken to some experts. I figure I'm going to play you back what we talked about, and then we can kind of have a bit of a chat about each one and then move on to the next thing.
The weird thing with this election is that it does seem like both sides are getting a little more sucked into the conspiracy world.
That's such a good point, and it's completely true.
The last time, like, we kind of reserved the conspiracy theories for the far right.
Yeah, completely.
And I feel like more and more, I don't know if it's just like, let's fight fire with fire, or people's lowering expectations are thinking that like, oh, you did this, I wouldn't put you past doing this. But it's weird to see both sides getting sucked in.
It's so weird, and it's such a downer because I've always had this hope that, and it's frustrating talking about sides, but it's kind of how you have to talk about it. Like, at least I felt like I was operating with logic and facts. And so to see that dissent is tricky. And I'm like you, I was thinking, why is that happening? Is it just a fight fire with fire thing? Or is just our general way we talk about the world and about facts? Are we just, all of us, getting slowly eroded into the way that, it's like in the same way that none of us have like long attention spans anymore, because like social media has ruined our brains and reading a book is hard. Are we all just slowly, without knowing it, morphing into that way of seeing the world where we can be led down these paths more easily? Because that's the whole dialogue.
I think it's more that things have gotten so combative between the two sides, and the evaluation of the opposition's character has gotten so much lower from both sides that
low blows everywhere.
They are like, either side are to me thinking they would go this low. This is possible for them to do this. Where I think before, like, I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to articulate it.
And that's, I often find myself having conversations and having exactly the same problem, how to frame things. We're living in the weirdest timeline ever.
Yeah, because I feel like the left, though, always has had an elite viewpoint of their positions on the right.
It's like we are the educated ones. We're up here looking down. There's been an element of like, we're looking down our noses at these dummies.
Yeah,
right?
so I'm not sure what's changed of just like, we just thought they were dumb, but now we think they're dumb and capable of being intentionally evil and pulling these like crazy manipulative things, which I do think it is more unique to Trump and the MAGA fan base than it is to Republicans at large.
100%. I think there are a bunch of people in the Republican Party that will just be so relieved if they don't have to deal with Trump ever again, and will be embarrassed to be turning up to work.
Right, and that's my viewpoint of the Republican Party too, is I wish they would stand up.
I know, and just do something about it. But no, they want to win with this guy and then long-term change things.
But I'm not also the mindset that I think like 100% of Republicans believe this and are the same.
100%.
I am aware that it is a percentage. It's just this thing of they're willing to overlook it.
Completely. And for that reason, the Republican Party has been permanently changed. Donald Trump has changed the way politics is done. Yep. And that is what the Republican Party represents, whether they like it or not. That's it.
Which, though, I mean, the same is to say of the left. Like, it's such a big thing that whoever is decided is going to be the figurehead of it. You really don't have much of a choice.
100%.
You could vote independent, but voting independent in this election
does nothing.
It does nothing.
It's a conscience call. Like there's reasons people have not to vote for the Democrats or Kamala that typically would, because their positions have just been almost so centrist or the same, like morally. I feel it. It's like, I'm frustrated that I have to do this if I could vote. But that's the other fascinating thing about America. It's any vote except for Kamala will not change a thing.
Well, it's almost a vote for Trump at that point, because I don't know if you get into this at all, but from what I understand, the more people vote, the more it typically leans left. And the less people vote.
No, I don't get into that, but that's what I have also read, 100%.
So voting independent or not voting at all is potentially beneficial to the right.
100%. For me, at the end of the day, selfishly, it just comes down to, I just want less noise.
Well, that's not true, though.
know.
You want LGBTQ people to not, like...
No, there's that as well. I want like
and you
women
want
to have control of their bodies.
Like,
oh, yeah, no.
There's so much.
No, I do. I'm being slightly facetious. I just want the next 4 years to be in some level of sanity and not completely insane.
Agreed.
All right.
Well, let's jump in head first into the insanity.
As you know, airports are places full of Wi-Fi and all sorts of evil energies. Think of all the phones out there, all of the signals, corruptible and corrupting. Luckily, I wear this magical amulet.
That's Russell Brand. And yes, he is wearing a magical amulet. A magical amulet that apparently protects against the evils of 5G. Now, why am I talking about failed comedian turned failed actor turned conspiracy theorist turned huckster Russell Brand? Well, when that clip popped up last month, it reminded me of just how strange this election cycle has gotten. Because when I started thinking about Russell Brand, it reminded me that he had recently become a born-again Christian and teamed up with self-help guru Jordan Peterson to help campaign for Donald Trump. A British man accused of rape and sexual assault joining forces with a Canadian who eats nothing but beef and hates trans people. What the hell was going on?
My fellow Americans, it's so lovely to be part of a double act that would have seemed somewhat unlikely just a short decade ago with my esteemed colleague and fellow clinical psychologist, Dr. Jordan Peterson, everyone.
The Brit and the Canadian were at a very American event called Rescue the Republic, organised by American podcaster Dr. Brett Weinstein, a man who's previously made a lot of false claims about COVID and HIV/AIDS. The event ended in a lot of praying.
May I pray, Lord Jesus Christ, in your holy name, that all Americans of all cultures and colours and persuasions come together in your name. I ask...
Which was sort of semi-normalish at times if you're into praying, before it increasingly got more out there.
That Satan be cast out in your name in all his forms, but in particular in the bizarre, Kafkaesque, Huxley-esque, late Orwellian form of totalitarianism, bureaucracy in the name of care. Lord, I ask for true republicanism and true democracy.
Talk of true democracy at a rally for Donald Trump, a former reality TV star who incited a riot at the Capitol after false claims of a stolen election. This whole thing has felt quite odd.
So my name is Mike Rothschild, and I'm a journalist and author focused on the rise and spread of conspiracy theories, disinformation, and moral panics.
Mike is one of my favorite experts when it comes to conspiracy theory culture, writing a book called The Storm is Coming, which I think everyone should read. Yes, he's aware his surname Rothschild is quite funny when you consider what he does, which is why his last book was called Jewish Space Lasers, The Rothschilds and 200 Years of Conspiracy Theories. Anyway, Mike knows his shit when it comes to a good conspiracy theory.
Just in general, how crazy do you feel things have gotten in this election cycle, even compared with the last one? In my mind, it all turns into just this huge blur.
It has definitely turned into a blur. It is kind of like taking 3 different flavors of oatmeal and mixing them all together. They're a little bit different, but at the end of the day, they're all oatmeal. So you just kind of have a mush that tastes like a bunch of different things. The crazy has been a little bit different with every election cycle. I think with 2016, there was this thought of, he can't possibly win. This is ridiculous. He's just doing this to launch a TV network or something. Absolutely no one expected him to win. He didn't expect to win. You know, go back to the clips on 2016 on election night. He's standing there looking just totally stunned. 2020, of course, was COVID, was the 2 oldest presidential candidates in history running against each other. 24 has been the Democratic switch, Trump's completely obvious decay, the economy, the rumors, the conspiracy theories. So it's all a little bit different. It's all also kind of the same.
It's the same in that, yes, there are always conspiracy theories. But I thought it would be nice to run through some of the ones that have been buzzing around in the lead up to today. Firstly, what spun out of that first assassination attempt on Donald Trump on July 13th in Pennsylvania?
And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
I say first assassination attempt because, yeah, there were a few of them. But it was that first one that really got people blabbing and theorizing on both the left and the right.
Well, I really think that the conspiracy theories about the assassination attempt are absolutely fascinating because you are taking an event and you are looking at it from two completely different ways. The far right, the rabidly pro-Trump sphere, they think this was a deep state hit job that was foiled literally by God flicking his cosmic finger and nudging the bullet out of the way. Never mind the other guy who got killed and the shooter who got killed. Trump was like saved by divine providence to lead America to the promised land. And on the anti-Trump side, the whole thing is staged. It's all fake. Trump was working with the Secret Service to pop up at just the right amount of time with the flag there at the right angle. So you're seeing two different sides of this political spectrum looking at the same thing and finding totally different approaches to it. And I don't happen to think either one of them are true, but I've seen so many people invested in either one of them being true without actually really thinking about, well, I don't think that God saved Trump from being shot in the head. I also don't think that Trump would allow somebody to shoot at him and hit his ear rather than his head. He's too vain for that. So that one just fascinated me because I could see it happening in real time. The calcification of points of view was happening minute by minute on social media before we even really knew what had happened.
Conspiracy theorists on the right said it was planned by the Democrats, terms like Antifa trending almost immediately on places like Twitter or X or whatever it's called now, where conspiracies were amplified thanks to retweets by Elon Musk. Marjorie Taylor Greene jumped in saying Democrats wanted this to happen, and US Representative Mike Collins said that Joe Biden sent the orders. Conspiracy theorists on the left claimed it was staged by the Republicans, with a lot of talk of false flags and crisis actors, which of course raises a lot of questions.
How do you stage an assassination attempt where two people are killed? Were they not killed?
So this one was kind of amazing to watch happen on social media at the time because it was just so much. An event happens like that, it's on camera, so instantly things are being pulled apart. What sort of hit me, and it's what you raised earlier, and it's what Mike just raised as well, is that the left jumps down conspiracy holes pretty quickly. And that surprised me. I was walking with a friend, smart, wonderful, great, and they just openly said, oh, no, I think it was staged. I think they were blood packs. He wasn't being shot.
I heard a few people make that claim too.
And that's the first time, I think literally the first time I've had friends that have very clearly stated what I would call an unfounded conspiracy theory at me that they completely believed. And I found that really fascinating.
That's kind of what I was getting to before, is I think how they think of Trump is so low that they think that he would do it. To me, though, I think he has shown so little competence, kind of like what Hayden was saying. I think it would be giving him too much credit that he could orchestrate any of this. Not even just that one, but like any of it being calculated.
Coming up with something in a public space where there are so many cameras and so many people and people are actually dying. Some people, I think, maybe just don't know. And I think it goes back to the 9/11 conspiracy theories about if you're going to plant bombs in the tower, like just logistically pulling it off. So many people have to be involved. It's just impossible to carry off. Like, we're giving humans too much credit. And it comes back to that thing, I think, always of like Occam's razor. Simplest things, probably the correct one. And some lunatic got in there and popped us some shots.
Right. But I think either one of us probably wouldn't be like, there's no way he wouldn't be willing to do something like that. I think that's the difference.
Oh, if he could.
But there's no facts to back it, and then just wildly being like, he did this, and I think he did this, is where it then starts to go down the conspiracy theory lane.
I am curious, and a number of other podcasts have covered this, just how it has affected or not affected Donald Trump's whole persona. Like, he's had 3 assassination-related sort of dramas in his life. That's a lot. And I imagine it has changed his psyche and how he thinks about things. And he certainly seems to have gotten less guarded with what he says, like less able to read a room. I think of the clip where he was
dancing for 45
a couple
minutes?
of medical emergencies in the crowd, and instead of like shutting it down or leaving, he just danced. And I was watching it going, why is no minder coming in and maybe going,
let's step away. They're just all standing around letting him do this, whereas the world is kind of watching going like, this doesn't seem very presidential.
No, it's all like a Tim and Eric sketch at this point.
It is.
It's crazy.
I can't believe it's real. Stay tuned for more Flightless Bird. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Support for Flightless Bird comes from Helix Sleep. Now, I know I've talked about this a lot, but when I first got to LA, I had absolutely nothing. It's weird because I just set up my life kind of in New Zealand just as I wanted it. I finally felt like an adult and I had all the things, and then I just left it all behind and came here and started over. And a bed is one of the most important things you can possibly have. So when they were like, we're going to sponsor your show.
Yeah, luckily for you, we decided to start a podcast as soon as you moved here.
And that's the main reason you should start a podcast, is to get a free bed.
You got a new bed.
Yeah, it turned up at my front door and I've been sleeping on it ever since. And it's the most luxe mattress I've ever had, and I love my Helix Sleep. And I had a friend stay when I was away, and they also said that was a good mattress.
And I can attest to your attitude has been so much better since moving here and having a bed that actually gives you a good night's sleep.
Yeah, it is really good to have a good night's sleep. And I am also very lazy, so the whole system is really great because you just go to the website, you take the Helix Sleep quiz about your sleep styles and what you want out of it, and it matches you with a mattress. I took the sleep quiz and I got matched with a midnight mattress, and it's the one for me.
Are you a side sleeper or...
I start on my belly, then I flip to my back, and then all night on my side. I've got a friend that sleeps on their back the entire night, and they have their arms crossed across their chest. It's like they're in a coffin. Yeah, they're a vampire, by the way. Okay, so right now, there's 25% off the whole site, and you get 2 free dream pillows with any mattress purchase. Also, there's a free bedding offer bundle. That's 2 dream pillows, sheet set, a mattress protector if you order any luxe or elite mattress order. Just go to helixsleep.com/bird. That's helixsleep.com/bird. Flightless Bird is sponsored by BetterHelp. Now, look, it seems to be that time of the year where we're meant to be like giving thanks for things, aka Thanksgiving and all that sort of thing. I would like to give thanks to my therapist in New Zealand. We do things over Zoom, but when I'm in New Zealand, I see her in person. She's great. And I was very cynical about therapists, but since I got one, I've just found it an incredibly enlightening experience to have someone neutral that can kind of break stuff down and help talk you through things.
Well, and just having someone that can lighten the load of your burden.
Yeah, because the world is pretty rough at the moment, so I think it's a pretty great idea. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch them at any time for no additional charge. So yeah, this month is all about gratitude, and along with the person I gave a shout out to, there's another person we don't get to thank enough: ourselves. So let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/bird today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/bird. Okay, on to the next one. Another big conspiracy that emerged in the lead up to today's election was around Hurricane Milton, which descended on Florida last month. As horror writer Stephen King tweeted, "What a stupid name for a hurricane." Now, Hurricane Milton followed Hurricane Helene, which had hit 2 weeks earlier, and it was big.
Hurricane Milton has barreled into Florida with historic fury, unleashing powerful winds and catastrophic flooding while producing an already deadly storm surge.
It could be the most powerful hurricane to hit the Tampa Bay area in more than a century. Tonight, more than 2 million people are without power as Milton's storm surge threatens destruction in the dark, with roads underwater as it continues to rise.
Of course, a storm can't just be a storm. This is America. So there has to be a conspiracy of some kind.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised by any of it at this point.
Some kind of diabolical plan with political motivations. There was the theory, false and repeated by Trump, that specific hurricane relief funds were being diverted to migrants. Others claimed Democrats had geoengineered the whole thing in order to kill Florida's Republican voter base. Marjorie Taylor Greene weighed in again, of course, tweeting, "Yes, they control the weather," not making it clear who they were. Others thought images were fake when they were real, and everyone's parents shared that one AI photo of a kid with a dog thinking it was real when it definitely wasn't.
We are now so immersed in the idea of how does this fit into our narrative? who is lying to us about this? How can we work this into the things that we already believe and use it against the people who we don't like? Anything that happens at any point is now going to be grist for conspiracism. Certainly weather control theories are nothing new. Certainly, the government let the natural disaster happen. That none of that is new. The one thing that I was sort of maybe amused is the wrong word, but the far right people who are claiming FEMA's not here, we're not getting what we need from FEMA. We tried to get our Starlink terminals and FEMA wouldn't give them to us. These are the people who 15 years ago thought FEMA was going to put them in an internment camp. This was still the party of Ronald Reagan, who said, the 9 most dangerous words of the English language, or I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Now suddenly, Donald Trump is running for office and they can't get enough stuff from FEMA. So it really, to me, the most interesting thing was pointing out how it became a real inversion of what the far right used to be.
I feel like I don't have a lot to add to this one. I'll just say I was sort of surprised at this storm was man-made theory, but apparently that is just a very common thought that a lot of people have. I just somehow missed that conspiracy theory my whole life.
Yeah, that one just seems hard to talk about because of how absurd it is.
Yeah.
I mean, the crazy thing that came out of that is Marjorie Taylor Greene perpetuating that conspiracy then resulted in FEMA having to put a bunch of resources into explaining where their funds are going and what they're doing.
Oh my God, right. I didn't know that.
And it diverted from them actually being able to help. It diverted funds and resources to having to explain, like, no, this is real. This is how you help. This is what you do. This is what we're doing.
It's like
prevented some people from getting what they needed.
It's so frustrating. It reminds me of peak QAnon when everyone became obsessed with children being trafficked and being in underground bunkers and being sucked of adrenochrome. Real organizations that did help with child trafficking, which is a real thing, were just being inundated with crazy people on the phone with crazy theories. And they had to actively start saying and trying to combat that misinformation because their lines were being overloaded. It's just horrible.
Well, and FEMA, did you watch John Oliver a couple weeks ago?
I've missed it. I've missed the last couple.
So he did a whole thing on FEMA and Waffle House.
Oh, okay. I need to get in on this.
And he plays the Raisin song.
Oh, get out of town.
It's very reminiscent of your Waffle House doc.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's right for someone like him.
Yeah.
And the Waffle House Index in a disaster. I mean, I love John Oliver. I don't know why I don't watch him more often. I need to get into the habit of just watching it each week.
Well, I mean, I think it's what we're saying is it's exhausting right now to pay attention to everything.
Even when it's packaged up in this comedic, funny way, it still sometimes feels like, oh.
Well, it's disheartening too. To see how divided everyone is disheartening, I think, for everyone.
Yeah, and it's hard to see a way back from.
Yeah.
Okay, and with that said, on to the next horrible theory. The third big conspiracy theory that spun out of control this election cycle was the whole cats and dogs thing. You know the one.
Watching that happen felt like one of those old chain emails or like fax blasts that somebody would send you about, well, if you flash your lights at an oncoming car that doesn't have its lights on, it's a gang initiation. They're going to murder you. It felt that ridiculous and kind of whispered and salacious, and it just kept going and going and going. And it was so close to the debate that I'm watching him going, Trump's going to talk about this. Trump's going to talk about this. Trump's going to bring it up. And 10 minutes into it, he's screaming, they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats. They're eating the pets.
And for me, I'm looking at this going, this is happening online. This is happening on Fox News. This is happening on the sort of dankest pits of far-right social media. If you're not living in those spaces, if you're not following the influencers who are relentlessly pushing that stuff, it sounds like the man is having a stroke.
They're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats.
It sounds like just brain rot. And I'm thinking to myself, how many people understand what that's supposed to mean? Now everyone knows what it's supposed to mean because the former president and maybe soon to again be president is screaming about it. because he's taking the bait because Kamala Harris is needling him about his rally attendance. It's like he was just waiting for some excuse to talk about the cat eating as opposed to anything that was actually going to affect people's daily lives.
That one was insane. The fact that a candidate for president is falling for a Facebook post. And then when he's asked about it, him and JD Vance were just like, we read it and they took no accountability for the fact that it was insane and was like a chain letter post of someone just rambling nonsense.
No, it was the thing that not my parents, but it's that generic thing a parent will like forward on from like 50 other people, and it's just insanity.
But just the fact that there was no accountability for it.
And you've got JD publicly saying, oh no, I knew that wasn't real, but for the cause, we got to keep this thing going. It's pretty frustrating. It went on as well because I'm just reading a bit from CNN. So after that whole thing, essentially Vance admitted he knew it was rubbish just to spread it anyway. Mm-hmm. But then he doubled down on another thing, and this is CNN. Do you know what's confirmed? That a child was murdered by a Haitian migrant who had no right to be here, Vance continued, also pointing to the impact migration has had on health and education services. That family that had a child killed had to come out and be like, just don't politicize this death.
Yeah.
We don't mind these migrants here. It's fine. Like,
it's helping
the
economy of that city too. And
it's
like the workforce.
So just doubling down on the racism, it's horrific.
There's no factual evidence to any of this.
No, there's not.
It's just
there's
all
not.
hearsay that is then being presented as facts on this grand stage.
Completely. And the Guardian wrote about this as well. City officials confirmed that they have received no such reports of cats and dog stuff. And the basis claim quickly drew condemnation. False claims about Haitians eating pets went viral. They were quickly amplified by conservative lawmakers. People of Haitian descent say the xenophobic attacks are nothing new for their community, and experts say the dog eater trope is a fear-mongering tactic white politicians have long deployed against immigrants of color, particularly those of Asian descent.
Yeah. Have you met anyone that believed that one?
No. I think that's very much existing in a bubble on the right and on Facebook groups and on forwarded messages on WhatsApp.
Yeah, I mean, the thing for me too is it makes me feel sad for the people that are being preyed upon to believe in this. Both of them clearly know that it's bullshit.
Yeah, completely. And they actively encourage it. Whereas you have people that are just like people trying to do good in their lives and trying to understand the world.
Yeah, and they're
being sold this stuff.
They're being manipulated intentionally for this.
Yeah, by people with these giant platforms that should know better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point to make. It's not like people listening to this and believing it, trying to understand the world and encountering the worst bad actors imaginable and sucking that information in. This was such a clearly racist attack. It's just frustrating. It's just racism.
No, and they're just being lied to from a cult leader, essentially. There's someone that they are going to believe and hang on every word that's said.
Should we do a fun one?
Let's do a fun one.
It's not really fun.
Oh, good.
There's no denying that Donald Trump loves a conspiracy theory. They're basically his bread and butter at this point. And he was lobbing a lot of them directly at his opponent this election to see what would stick. This was nothing new for him. Same shit, different day.
You know, it's been interesting to watch some of the previous generations of conspiracy theories try to get repurposed and not quite work. For a couple of days after Kamala Harris took over the nomination, there was this real effort to revive the birther thing of her dad's Jamaican. She's not a natural born citizen. And I think everybody went like, no, we're not doing this again. And you saw that very quickly fade away. And now the only real conspiracy theory that's stuck about her past is whether she worked at McDonald's or not when she was 19, which Trump just talks about endlessly.
We don't want to hear Kamala's fake promises, even something like she worked very long and hard hours over French fries at McDonald's. She'd never worked at McDonald's. It was a fake story.
But it's been interesting to watch some of those previous things just not quite catch on. Maybe it shows that we've learned a little bit, or we've just gotten dumber about different things. That I'm not quite sure about.
I mean, this one was sort of amusing. compared with some of the others. It was just him rabbiting on about one thing over and over again.
That had no relevance to anything. And then his publicity stunt at the McDonald's.
Which was fascinating because, yeah, he went to McDonald's. All these shots are spreading around of him like serving out the drive-through window. The media kind of originally covered that. And certainly I, watching the coverage, was like, oh, he's at a McDonald's. There's a drive-through happening. It's open. Turns out, no, the whole place was shut down, which is fine. But again, it's just, it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
It's like he can't even turn out to McDonald's on a day it's open. It's all got to be shut down and staged.
Yeah, it was private, and they invited supporters of his to drive up there. I mean, they maybe learned their lesson a little bit, sending J.D. Vance into that donut shop.
Oh my God.
And not prepping anyone.
Amazing. If you haven't seen that clip, just Google J.D. Vance donuts. It's just a sort of watching like an alien that's been dumped on the planet trying to communicate with some staff at a donut store. It's incredible.
They clearly were not supporters of his and wanted nothing to do with him. I think both of them, I think she asked multiple times not to be filmed.
Oh, she wasn't into it.
No,
but just poor staff member there, just like, oh, this is happening. God, it's on camera. Horrible. The way that the media covered that particular event and not originally pointing out that they'd shut the whole thing down and it was all kind of fake reminded me of this other thing I found really interesting, where there's been some commentary about the way the media has covered Trump, because essentially Trump will say something and it's kind of a confusing mess, just the way it's put together.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if a media organization printed that, you'd read it and sort of go, what is even going on? And so the media do this thing where they essentially translate what he said to kind of make sense. And so when you're reading what Trump says often in the media, certain print media, you read it and it's kind of logical, but that kind of, do you know what I mean? Like the media to cover Trump has this problem where to cover him, they have to make him sound more sane just so a reader in 3 paragraphs can understand what his main point was.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a really interesting thing that's happened in this cycle as well, where
it's making him seem more intelligent.
Yeah,
and you have
accidentally making him seem more intelligent just by trying to communicate things more clearly to their readers.
Well, what's your thought on that actual like coverage of? Because there was at some point people were like, just stop talking about him, stop covering him. That's what he wants. Like you're giving him the power. It's
that complicated catch-22 where he is one of the 2 main presidential candidates.
Yeah.
And so you've got to cover it. I think that criticism was more valid when he was not running for president.
Right.
He was like, let's ignore him. It's frustrating now because I think my gut is a lot of his bullshit is covered way too much. But then the comeback to that is, oh, well, it should be covered and documented because people need to know about this stuff because they're voting for him.
Yeah, I mean, that's my thought. He is running for election, and if we want news to not be biased, they need to cover both sides.
And I may be way off on this and will regret saying this, but I feel like both Kamala and Trump are being covered kind of, they both seem loud and covered, right?
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, it's just Trump knows how to get engagement with the media and say absurd things so that he's in the cycle for different things. I mean, there's that Van Jones quote that's circulating right now.
Oh, I haven't seen this.
Trump's allowed to be lawless and Kamala's expected to be flawless.
Yeah, he gets to be lawless. She has to be flawless.
Yeah.
I like that. I do wish the media wouldn't repeat some of the bullshit. Like the McDonald's stuff we didn't need. It's funny, but then that's the catch-22. I'm talking about it now.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about it, but in context.
But it's also important that like people know that this is happening and that this guy's doing these things.
The danger is when that's reported straight with no context, people do sometimes just believe things are absolutely false. That's the frustrating thing.
Yeah.
Because the media cycle is so fast moving, I think context is one of the hardest things to provide. And when you're just parroting what he said, sometimes people are just sitting at home, they watch it and they go, oh, Kamala's lying all the time, including about not working at McDonald's. Oh, okay. We're almost there. We can't cover election conspiracy theories without mentioning the one that stuck. The idea that the last election was rigged and that Trump actually won. It's so ingrained that Trump's running mate has to embarrassingly just go along with it, transformed into the equivalent of a talking potato.
Do you believe he lost the 2020 election?
I think that Donald Trump and I have both raised a number of issues with the 2020 election, but we're focused on the future.
Senator, yes or no?
Okay.
Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election.
Let me ask you a question. Is it okay?
Speaking on the Daily podcast on October 12, J.D. Vance did that thing many politicians tend to do, refusing to answer very simple questions. Somehow, this one just seemed a bit more embarrassing, though.
I think at this point it's become so orthodox on the right that you kind of have to toe the line of the election was rigged, the election was stolen. Yes, there was no evidence of voter fraud that we know of, but there were many irregularities. And you sort of answer the question without actually answering it. You leave it open for people to do their own research. You don't definitively say, yes, Trump lost. He did not run a good campaign. We're going to give it another try. We have the right message for America, blah, blah, blah. Like they can't even say 4 years later that he actually lost the election. And one of the things I'm kind of hopeful for is I'm really hoping that Kamala Harris wins by enough of a margin that we don't really see the enthusiasm for another go at Stop the Steal. Because if you're Donald Trump and you've allowed the deep state to rig one election, that's one thing. But if you're Donald Trump and you've now allowed the deep state to rig 2 elections, it's like, at some point, you just can't quite muster up the enthusiasm anymore to just sort of do all this over again. And of course, a lot of the big stolen election influencers have suffered some real consequences because of this. Hundreds of people involved with January 6th have gone to prison. A lot of the other major figures, Rudy Giuliani, Mike Lindell, people like Patrick Byrne, they've gone broke, they've gone bankrupt, they've been disgraced, they've been disbarred. You wonder if people are really going to do this again for Trump when it's so clear that he just doesn't have the juice anymore. So it's hard to make that kind of lightning strike twice. There'll be some kind of insanity after the election, but I just wonder if maybe it's just kind of hard to get that worked up again.
I'm not as positive as he is about people not getting worked up.
Yeah, I think that's their move again.
Yeah.
I mean, they've already laid the groundwork for it.
That's all they've been doing.
Yeah.
Right. I think Trump's probably going to win. That's my...
That's your hot take?
I hate that, but that's my... If I'm going to do a hot take, that's my hot take. It's just, I want to be wrong, and I am often wrong about a lot of things, but that's where I feel. Do you have a feeling?
I don't want to feel like that's going to happen. I hope for the sake of this country and people's relationships. I haven't talked to my brother in like 4 months, and we haven't had a real conversation about anything in over a year because
of this shit.
This. So yeah, I hope as a country we can get past this. And I do think it's a lot of this figure stoking this kind of rhetoric and behavior between people. And I would love for it to just all go away.
I've lived in New Zealand for most of my life. I've been in the States for 3 years now. I like it here. It's a change, and I like my friends, and I like my work. But it's the first time where I've sort of thought, I feel extra fortunate and lucky that I can go to New Zealand now. The borders are open. My problem of getting stuck here no longer exists. But it's a real thing where I'm thinking, what would life look like there if I did go back? And I'm one of those lucky shitheads that can do that. And I just think there's certain people that should be deeply worried and that are going to have real issues with so many things, and they don't have that option. It's just horrific.
Well, and 4 more years of Trump has already kind of been laid out of revenge on people that have wronged him and putting people in power.
Oh, he actually does, want to take revenge. He wants them locked up. And when you look at his long-term plans for putting certain people in power in all over, even outside of the government, inside agencies, it's terrifying.
Well, yeah, they're talking about Elon Musk being put at the head of something, RFK Jr. put at the head of CDC.
Yeah. And there's always been a part of my brain that likes drama and weirdness, and part of my thing about being in America is, wow, I'm around all this wacky stuff, but this kind of stuff, it gets to a point where I don't feel excited about it. I just feel depressed about what we're capable of doing.
Well, it's because there's real consequences for real people.
Yeah.
And you want good to triumph.
I do. Yeah. And that trumps my, I hate to say the word trumps my love of weird shit for once in my life. It's just a bad thing to think about.
Yeah, it's not worth the payoff. You getting something amusing.
The payoff is not there.
It's not
anymore.
worth the woman that died in Texas because they couldn't operate on her miscarriage.
Which is just the fact you just said that and that's a thing that happened.
Yeah.
Insane.
Flightless Bird will be back in a moment. Support for Flightless Bird comes from OneSkin. Now, the holiday season in America, it's tough on skin. It's colder weather, stuffy indoor heating, and non-stop festivities can lead to a dull, dehydrated complexion.
And you're used to not getting colder on the holidays.
It's
in New
reverse.
Zealand.
Yeah, in New Zealand right now, it would be getting into the heat. But here in America, it's getting cold. And I have noticed my face is dry. And so this was actually the perfect time to start getting some OneSkin products because I needed them. Founded by an all-woman team of scientists, OneSkin focuses on skin longevity and not just surface level improvements. I got 2 OneSkin products. One is a facial moisturizer and one is purely for around the eyes, which, I hate to say it, as you get older, things get more saggy, and good God, I needed this stuff. So this is actually the first time I've used a facial moisturizer, and it has literally been a godsend because, as I said, my face has been drying the hell out because it's getting cold and everything's so dry because that's what LA does to you. For a limited time, you can try OneSkin for 15% off using the code BIRD when you check out at oneskin.co. This holiday season, invest in your skin's long-term health because healthy skin is a gift. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. OneSkin addresses skin health at the molecular level, targeting the root causes of aging so skin behaves, feels, and appears younger. It's time to get started with your new face, eye, and body routine at a discounted rate today. Get 15% off with the code BIRD at oneskin.co.
That's 15% off oneskin.co with code BIRD. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support this show and tell them we sent you. We only have one body, one skin, and only you can choose to make it better. Age healthy with OneSkin.
Okay, some parting words from Mike, and I also talked to another conspiracy theory expert who is like literally the godfather of this space.
Alex Jones.
Oh, imagine. With those conspiracy theories covered, I wondered where Mike Rothschild's brain was at now the election is actually here.
Desperate for it to be over. It has consumed everything about everything over the last 2 years, really. But also it kind of feels like it just started because it's only been Trump versus Harris for 3 months. So it really is this kind of funhouse mirror where it feels like it's been going on forever, and it also feels like it just started. So I am very desperate for it to be over. I want to know how it ends. I want to know what's going to happen afterwards, what kind of reaction there's going to be from the far right. I know a lot of Democrats. I mean, Democrats just love doom and gloom, and we just soak in it. I think a lot of it is 2016 trauma. I think she's going to win. I think that this country is just sick of him, and a lot of moderate conservatives just want him to go away and have a Republican Party that you can actually feel good about talking about and voting for again. If I had to guess, I think the electoral map is going to look a lot like 2020. We might see Georgia flip to the Republicans just because it was such a razor-thin margin last time. I think we might see North Carolina flip to the Democrats because they're running the Black Nazi running for governor. I mean, I don't know how you get ticket splitting with Kamala Harris and the Black Nazi. I mean, I just don't see that.
The Black Nazi reference went right over my head. I did a quick Google and there's a lot of reporting on this.
When it comes to slavery, he wrote, quote, "Slavery is not bad. Some people need to be slaves. I wish they would bring it back. I would certainly buy a few." That is just some of the top lines in this really pretty shocking report, Hallie.
CNN expands on that NBC report saying, Mark Robinson, the controversial and socially conservative Republican nominee for governor of North Carolina, made a series of inflammatory comments on a pornography website's message board more than a decade ago in which he referred to himself as a black Nazi and expressed support for reinstating slavery. Totally normal stuff. I mean, fuck, who isn't posting on porn sites? Don't you just go there and watch porn and then leave? Who's sticking around to chat? I guess now we know. But back to Mike on his thoughts about tonight. Obviously, from listening to him, he doesn't want Trump to win.
I feel pretty good about it. She's massively outraising him. Her ground game is so much stronger than his. He is disintegrating day by day. She's running a really solid campaign. I think we're going to look back on this and look at it as we were really, really worried about something that just didn't happen. I think a lot like 2012 or I mean, maybe that's the analogy. Like everybody thought, like, oh, it's going to be so close. It's a razor thin margin between Obama and Romney, and it was over in like an hour.
I think I still get freaked out by 2016 because I was in America then, and that was just such a surprise. And that's always the thing that sits in the back of your mind, you know?
It always sits in the back of your mind. Like, is she doing enough in Wisconsin? Is she doing enough in Pennsylvania? But it was very different. I think a lot of people really looked at Trump as a viable alternative. He was the businessman. He was going to run the country like a CEO. And it was Hillary Clinton. And a lot of people just really hated Hillary Clinton. And a lot of people were like, well, I don't like Trump, but I hate her. And so they voted for Trump. And then once you start voting for Trump, it's like the gateway drug of insanity. And you start to defend it more and more. You dig in more and more. You vote for him again. You defend him more. Some people have broken out of that cycle. But I think the shock of that initial moment of, oh, it is not going well, has never really left us. And I don't know that it will until Trump is really finally off the national stage.
At this point, before I wrap things up, I wanted to talk to one other person who knows a lot about conspiracy theories.
My name is Joe Uzinski. I am a professor of political science at the University of Miami, and I study conspiracy theories.
Joe literally wrote the book on conspiracy theories. It's called Conspiracy Theories, and he's one of the leading experts in this space. And when I spoke to him, his big thing was that all the conspiracy theories we've been talking about so far, ultimately, they're not really anything new.
I have to pay attention to specific conspiracy theories because that's what journalists are interested in. But having done this as long as I have, I mean, they're just so boring because they're not really creative. Most of it's the same thing over and over and over and over again. And maybe they change a noun to adapt it to new circumstances. So it used to be the Rothschilds who were out to get us. Then it was the Kennedys, the Rockefellers, the Koch brothers, George Soros, Bill Gates. It's like a Mad Lib. Just put in some noun and now you've got a new conspiracy theory.
I felt a little bit surprised about the theory during the rounds that the hurricane that hit Florida was a Democrat-controlled storm. I thought that was kind of unique.
Well, I hear all of them with the weather control stuff because I'm here, and they go out and get your weather supplies, and you're going to either hear from the Uber driver or the person at the cash register at the grocery store. So people will tell me Trump sent it here. Other people say Kamala sent it here. So somebody sent it here, right? It's some group of people saying it. But it's only interesting because we're paying attention to it. It's always there. It's not clear that it's that much big a deal. I polled on it in Florida about a year after Irma, and it was like 15% of respondents said that they bought into the idea that the government controlled hurricanes, which makes it not negligible, but in comparison to a lot of the conspiracy theories I poll on, not particularly widely believed.
As he reiterates, none of this is really new.
If you watch the Woodstock documentary from 1969, there's a really neat clip where it starts to rain and this guy is walking away from the stage and he goes, Nixon is behind this. He's been seeding the clouds to shut down our concert.
I go and scroll through the documentary, and there it is.
I got something to say. I want to know how come the fascist pigs have been seeding the clouds. Right. Last hour and the airplanes going over twice with all the smoke coming out of them seeding the clouds. And I want to know, why that stuff is going down, man. And why doesn't the media report that stuff to the people, man? I'm telling you what happened. The planes come over for an hour and a half and they seeded all the clouds.
Maybe this expert on conspiracy theories has a point. We're just stuck in an infinite loop of shitty ideas. Time is a flat circle, all that kind of thing. When it comes to the assassination attempt theories, he's sort of surprised it didn't get crazier.
I mean, it's unsurprising that there's going to be conspiracy theories about it because there's conspiracy theories about any type of shooting, assassination attempt. I mean, only a few weeks after Kennedy was assassinated, 50% of the country thought it was a conspiracy rather than a lone gunman. By the mid-70s, it was 80%. So there's nothing new here thinking that, the assassin is part of a bigger plan or whatnot. What does surprise me is that they didn't get more coverage than they actually did, especially the first one. I mean, he was inches away from being dead. And it shocks me that it wasn't paid more attention to.
Well, Joe is at pains to point out that the level of conspiracy theory belief in society isn't really changing. He says we are hearing about them more at the moment, because of the election and because of Trump?
Well, there's conspiracy theories all the time around everything. And we tend to notice conspiracy theories when they are attached to things that we're paying attention to. So we're all paying attention to an election right now. So, of course, part of that attention is going to be devoted to the conspiracy theories. That's a general rule. So it's not that conspiracy theories tend to just attach to big events, but rather they attach to everything, but we pay attention to big events. So therefore we pay attention to the conspiracy theories attached to big events. I think it's a little more so now with this election because we have one candidate who is pushing a lot of conspiracy theories as part of his platform and has been doing so for the last 15 years.
What do you think it says about America that some of our political leaders are leaning into conspiracies more and more?
It's happened in other countries and it's happened here. There are a lot of leaders who engage in this sort of stuff. And Trump in the U.S. is certainly not the only one who does it. But I don't think that Trump is all politicians in the U.S. I don't think Trump represents all Republican politicians or all Republicans in the mass public. I think he represents a wing of people. And I think that sentiment that he expresses, the idea that the establishment is corrupt and only an outsider can come in and fix it, I mean, that's held by a lot of people. And it's been around for a long, long time. It's just that the parties didn't really have a major candidate who tried to run almost exclusively on that. And then Trump comes along and pretty much runs just on that. So he sort of upended the system. In a lot of ways, I think that he's the exception that sort of proves the rule. Parties are about operating within the mainstream system. They are creatures of the establishment. So they're not really all about conspiracy theories all the time the way Trump is. I mean, certainly there are politicians throughout our history who have engaged in conspiracy theories from time to time, but nothing like he does, and nothing to call into question the entirety of our political system. So this is sort of an aberration more than anything else. A big one and a consequential one, but people talk about it as if, oh, Republicans were always like this. And I'm like, really? I mean, they were just waiting to show their true face until now?
I guess that's where Marjorie Taylor Greene comes in.
Many in our government are actively worshiping Satan. I mean, is it going to be true that the child pedophilia in the elites in the Washington, D.C., is it going to be satanic worship? If you're going to come into the football game or the baseball game or the concert, you need your vaccine passport because we're trying to do a good job to keep everyone safe. This is what the Biden administration is trying to talk to these private companies into doing. Well, let's analyze that. You see, it's still the same thing. It's still fascism or communism, whatever you want to call it, but it's coming from private companies. So I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism. They want you to be required to have something called a COVID passport. And I asked the question earlier today, is this something like Biden's mark of the beast?
Do you just objectively find it strange that someone that is so conspiratorial minded and so loud is in this system that's meant to be taken really seriously and is really important?
Well, she has a lot of faults beyond the conspiracy theorizing. So I don't think it's just that I would say is a problem with her. You have a body of 435 people. We shouldn't be shocked that one of them believes a bunch of conspiracy theories. I think that if Trump hadn't happened, she wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be paying attention. I think a lot of her power comes from the fact that she's sort of allied with Trump and she's sort of playing into that governing MAGA wing of the Republican Party. And that's the broader issue. I mean, there are lots of things we could say about it, like, oh, she's super powerful in the fact that she's a member of Congress. On the other hand, relative to other members of Congress, is she really that powerful in the body? I don't know. And everyone's aware of her and her rhetoric. I think she's largely a joke to most Americans.
As we wind up our talk, Joe mentions some of what he calls the here and gone stupid stuff that we've been subjected to this election cycle. The rigging of the Super Bowl for the Chiefs so Taylor Swift could sway the presidency. Or for those that follow the royal family, Kategate back in March.
I'm not necessarily concerned about the conspiracy theories, but I'm concerned about what the conspiracy theories represent. And, you know, the fact that somebody believes it's rigged, I don't really care. The fact that somebody believes it's rigged and they want to go blow up a building, that's the sort of stuff that concerns me. Now, I'm not saying most people who believe that are going to engage in that action. Most people who believe the election was rigged in 2020 did not attack the Capitol on January 6th. 99% of them were at home or work, not doing bad things. So in that sense, it's not that big of a deal. I would prefer that they not believe things that are false, but this is the world we live in. My concern is with people who want to do violence because they like doing violence. And sometimes they'll use a conspiracy theory to either direct that action or to justify actions they would have taken anyway.
How do you remain so happy through all of this? I mean, I feel like as we've been talking, you've been kind of laughing and you're a very jolly person. A lot of people that are in this space feel very downtrodden and depressed. You feel the opposite.
I've been doing this for a while and I see the dynamics, and a lot of it is somewhat predictable. I don't want to see bad things happen. I detest bad things, but I sort of had to detach myself a little bit emotionally because I'm a social scientist. I try to be good at my job, and part of that is to remain a little bit detached. Maybe in some ways I don't see the world as real. I see it as a data set. And in order to be able to do what I do, I mean, I'm up to my neck in crazy beliefs and bad behavior in the stuff I do. And if I was spending all my time taking it to heart, it'd probably be really difficult for me to do it. Because when I spend a lot of time thinking about it, a lot of the things our politicians do are frankly horrifying. And it's awful. And we've seen instances over the last 2 years where some of this rhetoric has just gotten so bad. And in some instances, it probably has motivated really bad behavior. So, again, if I took it to heart, I'd probably have to retire and go drive an Uber. Conspiracy theories have always been out there. When people ask me, are things worse now than they've ever been? I usually say worse than when we were burning witches. A lot of our problems right now are Trump and politicians like Trump. He doesn't have a monopoly on bad behavior, but he's the most prominent, engaging in a lot of really bad things, and that's a problem. But I think truth eventually wins. Yes, you're going to have bad beliefs from time to time, but I think the general trajectory of human history is more knowledge rather than less.
Good. I think that's a positive note to end on. What I really like about him is that he does have this kind of sort of rolls his eyes. He's like, no, this shit's always been here.
Yeah.
It's just always there. It's not the level of brainworms isn't worse than it's ever been before. We just need to like figure out how to like not lean in more, but to lean back.
Yeah, it's just that social media is connecting us more than ever in the news. And
yeah, we hear about it. Like the opinions are louder. And of course, Trump is just, as you say, he's stoked it all on and he has made it much louder. So yeah, belief's always been there. Because I sometimes spin out and go, are these brainworms and brain rot sort of like spreading to a point where none of us are going to be able to have a conversation? But I do like that he says, you know, there's always been this base level of people that believe the stuff. That's not changing. I find that somewhat comforting.
Yeah. There's also the question, is it better that this is all in the open and like versus just deception happening behind closed doors?
Yeah, I guess that's the one advantage. You can see what someone actually believes because they say it out loud now.
Yeah. But also, like he said, it motivates bad behavior. And if you're spewing that to a large enough audience,
yeah, more chance that someone's going to react in a terrible way.
Yes.
So I'm fascinated by how Election Day goes. We'll keep in touch over text. I'm probably going to head to a very Trump-orientated area. I'm going to take my recording gear and just kind of hang out with them and kind of get the gist. I'm curious what the night's going to be like.
Be safe.
Where are you going to be? Home with kids? And
home with kids.
And yeah, wherever you are listening, just record your experience and send it to flightlessbirdchat@gmail.com. Tell us where you are, have a chat to people early on in the night and see how they're feeling. And then at the end of your night, as people are going home, check in with them again. Just keen to kind of canvass America and how different people are doing things and how different people are feeling about it all. Mike Rothschild did one good tweet that I just wanted to read that I really liked. He just said, migrants are not eating pets. Doctors are not murdering newborn babies. Schools are not doing transition surgery on kids. Nobody is taking away your gas stove. You will not be forced to drive an EV. This is moral panic nonsense. It's Trump's campaign platform and it's all fake.
Yeah. The irony of the EV thing is that Elon Musk is now aligned.
Yeah.
It's also just weird how that happened. Usually the electric vehicle stuff is for the left-leaning.
I know, it's somehow swung.
Yeah, it's just this like cyclical thing of like it went so far one way that now it's come around.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of friends that drive Teslas, and it's a different vibe driving a Tesla now than it was when they first came out. It represents different things.
Sure
and
does.
there are so many Cybertrucks in Los Angeles. Do you know why the hell that is? I'm seeing more of them. Is it just people, are they getting rid of them?
I think they're just
buying
available.
them?
No, I think they're just available now.
So they've come off the conveyor belt, and people are like, I want to drive one of these things.
Yep.
Have you been in one?
No. I had to get my car fixed, and they were giving me a loaner, and they asked
because you bought a Tesla.
if I had a preference, and I was like,
Cybertruck.
As long as it's not a Cybertruck. And he's like, oh, we actually usually get the opposite request.
Oh, people want to jump in?
Yeah.
It would make my year if you pulled up in a Cybertruck. I would never let you live it down. It would just be the best thing in the world to see your happy face grinning out from one of those
window
trucks.
Going down.
The best. All right, a lot of feedback to the catfishing episode, which is probably expected because a lot of people have been catfished. I just wanted to read a few of those out. Someone made a really good point that we need to do an episode about catfish. Was
that me?
You did say that. And then about 100 other people. Yeah, noodling, I believe it's called. I pulled this off Wikipedia. Noodling is fishing for catfish using one's bare hands or feet and is practiced primarily in the southern US. The noodler places their hand or foot inside a discovered catfish hole in order to catch the fish. So what the fuck? They just clamp down?
I think they probably think it's worms, and they go and bite
and so
your
they
hand
just
and you grab it
grab.
out. I don't know. I've never noodled.
You've never noodled?
And I don't know much about it.
You know, the crazy thing is, and when I did that episode about catfishing, never once did this enter my mind, even though multiple times on Instagram I've seen people noodling. Of course I need to noodle. Also, I am very scared of holes in things, like in the pool.
Yeah.
Like any vent or
I would never do that. Oh. But sounds like you might for an episode.
I'm going to have to. All right. Chris said on Instagram, just a quick note, in Sweet Bobby, the person catfishing that woman was her own cousin, not the cousin of the guy, which makes it even crazier. Her own cousin turned against her. I also heard from Chuck Tingle. Do you know Chuck Tingle?
You've brought me some of his books.
Yeah, he writes these really compelling bits of erotic fiction. It all gets very meta and very crazy. And an interesting thing has happened. So we became online friends because I liked his writing and I think he liked Tickles. And then a couple of years ago, we met in person. And if you don't know Chuck Tingle, he's completely anonymous. He wears a paper bag over his head. He often wears like a kung fu outfit. And when I met him at an apartment, that's what he was wearing. So
I thought you were going to meet maybe the man behind.
Part of me did. Yes, like you meet them and it's like, oh, that's my persona, but I trust you and this is who I actually am. But no, he
doesn't trust you.
He doesn't trust me. But then what I found out recently, he's told me this, is that we live in a similar part of LA. We pass each other all the time walking. Also, he's seen me at a bunch of the same shows because we both like metal. And so in my life, I've looked at the real Chuck Tingle and just not known it was Chuck Tingle. And I may have a real life relationship with Chuck Tingle, although I recognize the voice, so that's unlikely. So he wrote in and he said, wonderful episode, but I take issue with one trot. A trot is what he calls a story or a point. David said he has never been catfished. However, me and Buckaroo David have been buds online and in person for many years now, and he does not know my legal name or face. So I guess this leads to a greater philosophical question of, is it catfishing if the person is hiding their identity but you know it? Can one be in an open catfish relationship? Anyway, great episode, always. Tanya replied to him saying, you're not trying to pass off as some other person, though. It's still you, even if it's under an alias. I think that's the main difference. Chuck replied to that saying, this is true, and it's a very kind response, but I'm not playing a character as Chuck. This is an honest expression of myself. So even if he does not know my legal name or face, we still know each other in a very real way. In some ways, he knows me better than some of the folks because Chuck is such an honest expression of myself. Reverse catfish, where you are more vulnerable around someone who does not know your legal identity.
Yeah, it's a shield.
Yeah, Chuck's comments there echo why his writing is so good, because you'll read the They're called tinglers, like his erotic. And it's like, it sounds on the surface like a very silly thing, but you read his stuff and your mind is blown because he just takes you down some rabbit holes. P wrote in saying, I was once hatfished, which is catfishing adjacent. I went on a date with a man who wore a hat with hair poking out, but I later found out he was completely bald and always wears the hat on first dates.
The hair was attached to the hat.
Which is horrific.
Yeah, I think it would be less of a problem if it was just a hat. But the fact that there's hair with it.
Wild.
Yeah.
And also, what did that person expect? If that went well, like at some point they're going to have to say, not only am I bald, but I actively misled you. You can wear a hat. That's not actively misleading.
Yeah.
You put hair in that hat.
Yeah.
It's another level.
What if I told you?
Oh, Rob, if you take that hat off right now, and look, nothing wrong with being bald at all, but
no,
just
it's the
this
deception.
Context, it's the deception. I would like
Ready?
it. So you take the hat off. Yeah, your wig's still on.
It's still there.
It's sitting there well. All right, a bunch of people over on Webworm were commenting. I made them anonymous. F said, I matched with a man on Tinder. He told me he was a lawyer. I work at the courthouse and looked into it. Turns out he was an accountant. So I posted his profile to one of the groups that lets women know about predatory men on dating apps. I forgot to post as anonymous. Someone outed me and I was harassed by this man and his entire family for about 24 hours. They found my phone number and called me continually for 6 hours from different numbers. Isn't it great being a woman online?
Mm-hmm.
T said, in 97, when I was a teenager, I convinced some girls in a chat room that I was Taylor Hanson from the band Hanson. I'm assuming T was like a similar age at this time and it wasn't like a 60-year-old creep. It went on for about an hour and they totally believed me. So I was the catfisher, but after hearing your episode, I feel really bad about it now. It was funny at the time, though. It never went past chatting. H said, my mum was fleeced for thousands of dollars by a catfisher pretending to be a Hallmark actor. It went on for months. K said, a disgruntled employee once impersonated me on morning talkback radio, which is kind of novel.
Ooh, yeah.
There was a lot of confused phone calls and please explain emails at work the next day. That's kind of wild. And Jay said, I'm not sure if it falls under the category of catfish, but I've gotten spoofed calls from the local police department telling me there were warrants out for my arrest because I missed jury duty. I needed to post a 20K bond or the LAPD would come out to arrest me. Several minutes hyperventilating and one call to the actual police. Turns out it wasn't really a thing. So yeah, I mean, that was just a selection. I thought there would be a response to that, but the sheer number of people that have had catfishing stories is vast. Some of them super tragic, mainly parents being out of money, and that's the worst thing. And my greatest fear in life is when I get to that age where I no longer understand technology, I get confused, and I end up
preyed upon.
It's probably going to happen to all of us. I would just say, if you are panicked by some bank calling you or doing something, just contact a friend or a child and just double check before you start jumping on the phone and installing software on your computer to fix the problem.
Contact a child? So like call up Calvin.
Any child. Call Calvin. God, call Calvin. Call your child. If your child is
above
an adult.
the age of 25.
If your child's
Got it.
Call like a 7-year-old and just get their take. So yeah, look, considering this episode, the day you're listening to this, stay sane and safe today. Do something good for your mental health. Kiss someone you love or stroke a cat or go for a walk or play a video game. It's the weirdest time. I think it is the weirdest time.
It is.
And next week, we'll be breaking down what happened in our unique flightless bird kind of way. And again, if you like the show, share it, tell people about it. I know it sort of sounds cheesy and we joke about it, but the whole like and subscribe thing is super handy. So the more people that do that, the better it is for us.
The longer we can make this show.
The longer we can make the show, the more resources we get. So appreciate you listening. Stay safe out there and we'll see you next week.
I do have maybe a fitting way to take us out this week. My friend Matthew Logan Vasquez sent me a new song that he's working on that is about Alex Jones. And it's called AJ Said It Polka.
Oh, yeah, play it. Play us out.